Hello, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Weekly Fuels Briefing for Thursday, August 6, 2026. To start us off, we are in the process of issuing two new fuel and fire behavior advisories, one for Utah, Nevada, and one for Southwest Idaho. They have slightly different conditions. For Utah, Nevada, we're still hiding the record dryness in mainly the juniper fuel beds, but any of the shrubs and into the timber fuel types are still going to be pretty dry right now. Extreme fire behavior is being observed on ongoing incidents, new and ongoing incidents, and large fire growth is quite rapid, even after the recent monsoon moisture. So we do know we are going to be expecting a little bit of monsoon moisture back up into the Great Basin. That's why we haven't included, partly why we haven't included the southern part of Utah. But even as this moisture comes and goes through the remainder of, over the next couple of weeks, in the remainder of fire season, these fuels can dry out rapidly in between pulses of moisture. So we're still concerned about some of these areas, even though we may see a little bit of precipitation. For Southwest Idaho, we're mainly highlighting the western fringe there, the western Payette, and then the Wildland Fire Service lands in Southwest Idaho, highlighting the abundant grass crop that exists there, near record low shrub moisture that's resulted in extreme fire behavior and high rates of spread. Look for these advisories to be published later today, hopefully by close of business. To start us off, we are in the process of issuing two new fuel and fire behavior advisories, one for Utah, Nevada, and one for Southwest Idaho. They have slightly different conditions. For Utah, Nevada, we're still hiding the record dryness in mainly the juniper fuel beds, but any of the shrubs and into the timber fuel types are still going to be pretty dry right now. Extreme fire behavior is being observed on ongoing incidents, new and ongoing incidents, and large fire growth is quite rapid, even after the recent monsoon moisture. So we do know we are going to be expecting a little bit of monsoon moisture back up into the Great Basin. That's why we haven't included, partly why we haven't included the southern part of Utah. But even as this moisture comes and goes through the remainder of, over the next couple of weeks, in the remainder of fire season, these fuels can dry out rapidly in between pulses of moisture. So we're still concerned about some of these areas, even though we may see a little bit of precipitation. For Southwest Idaho, we're mainly highlighting the western fringe there, the western Payette, and then the Wildland Fire Service lands in Southwest Idaho, highlighting the abundant grass crop that exists there, near record low shrub moisture that's resulted in extreme fire behavior and high rates of spread. Look for these advisories to be published later today, hopefully by close of business. Looking at the precipitation for the past 7 days, we can see that we have seen some precip, mainly over the eastern half of the geographic area and particularly over southwest Idaho. Western Idaho, Nevada, and western Utah have been quite dry in the last week. Looking further back for the past 14 days, we can see that we did have more precipitation with that last monsoon surge. Above normal precipitation was observed over much of Nevada and into parts of southern Idaho, eastern Idaho, some pockets here and there, northern Wasatch, and even the southern Utah mountains. But notably, we want to draw your attention to the areas that did not see much precipitation in the past couple of weeks. That's southern Nevada, parts of central Utah, the Great Basin, and then western Idaho were also very dry pockets that didn't see very good precipitation from that latest monsoon surge. And incidentally, that's where we're seeing our new and emerging fires. Days since precipitation is shown here again, kind of telling the same story. We have many stations in southern Nevada that it's been near 100 or over 100 days since they've seen measurable precipitation. Same story for northern Utah. So definitely some dry pockets out there that didn't see much in the last round of the monsoon rains. Drought conditions haven't changed a whole lot. Here we're looking at the short-term drought on the left and the longer-term drought on the right. Still a lot of drought out there, Utah, southern Idaho, and northern Nevada. ERC percentiles are shown here. Many of our PSAs are above the 80th and 90th percentile. We have a couple of zones over as far as southern Nevada and the Sierra Front where those values are above the 97th percentile. So very high fire danger area-wide. Let's zoom into Idaho here. First, we're looking at a couple of zones. The ERCs have been on a pretty steep incline over the past week to 10 days with the drier air in place, and that trend is expected to continue with the dry forecast. Any moisture that we do get with this next surge looks to remain fairly limited across the north, at least for the next week or so. The recent fire activity is shown here for Idaho. Again, the main fires that we've had in the last week is that Tartar fire on the Payette that had a pretty significant blowout over the weekend. The big grass fire that has moved in from Oregon continues to grow each day, burning in the grass and shrub. And then Western Wyoming had that bear fire, which is burning on the border of the Rocky Mountain area, mostly in timber. But the main fuels of concern right now in Idaho continue to be the grass and shrubs. We aren't seeing a lot of large fire growth in our timbered areas, especially in the central Idaho mountains just yet. And even Western Wyoming fire activity has been fairly minimal at the higher elevations. For Nevada, those ERCs are also very high area-wide. Again, under the dry period that we've seen, those ERCs have increased. Far southern Nevada is seeing near record values right now. Those are expected to level off a bit with the next little pulse of monsoon moisture coming up, and we see that leveling occurring a little bit further north in eastern Nevada as well. Still ERCs staying pretty high, so just a little bit of relief in terms of some cloud cover, maybe some light precip, and some improvement in relative humidity. Recent fire activity in Nevada has mostly been focused in southern and eastern portions of the state as well. With that better precipitation coverage further north, we haven't seen a whole lot of large fire activity there. But southern Ely, we did see that ward fire grow rapidly just south of Ely over the weekend. And southern Nevada, multiple fires burning on or near the DoD land there have been very active in the juniper and shrubs as well. Pivoting over to Utah, these values are also pretty high, above normal for the time of year, certainly below records. However, even though we've continued to see very active fire behavior, extreme fire behavior, especially on that Wide Mouth 2 fire, unusual for the time of year after that monsoon surge, really just pointing to the fact that the brush fuel types are so extremely dry on the second year of significant drought that it's not taking super hot, super dry, super windy conditions for those fires to see advanced fire behavior and significant growth. So even though, like we said, there is going to be some precipitation coming the weekend and into the first or into next week, we want to be prepared for when the air mass dries out again. We should expect to see fire behavior picking up once again, and certainly as that moisture just starts to come up and the storms are on the drier side, we would expect to see some potentially extreme fire behavior with any new starts that pop up. Okay, again, the recent fire activity in Utah here, the big story is that Wide Mouth 2 fire, which has just grown very rapidly over a short period of time, burning in the heavier fuels, the shrubs and the heavier fuels. And then even in northern Utah, the Johnson Canyon fire was over 7,000 acres burned pretty quickly as well, as it's been dry in the northern part of the state. Change in critical fuel status is shown here. Last week, some of the zones yellowed out in southern Utah, but based off of their reporting yesterday, they wanted to go back into the red category due to the dry conditions that they've experienced in the last week and some of the fire behavior that we've seen with those fires as well. In Idaho, some of the zones have moved into the red category as well on the Payette and the Salmon Chalice. And this concludes today's weekly fuels briefing. Please check back next week for the latest updates.